All right, team, how we doing? I'm Adam Byrne with Jenkins Elite here. I'm our national recruiting coordinator, and I'm going to take you guys through the basics of the recruiting. So on that note, let's get into the presentation. First things first, it's our first part here. Some of it's our first time being with one of these programs as far as our Jenkins Elite with our recruiting department. So I just kind of want to take you through the basics of our recruiting program as it starts off. So really, football season's finally here, and each season it's important to really get organized. And whether we're in high school or middle school or even elementary, kind of just want to get organized in general and get used to having this idea and really promoting healthy habits with our kids and looking towards the future and getting ready for that high school and then ultimately recruiting in college down the road. So here are a few points of emphasis and to help guide us along the way, and let's start rolling. All right, so understand the basics of the college football landscape. So to start out with, we have Division I, which has FBS, which is Football Bowl Championship Series, and Football Championship Series, or FCS. So we have our division, as well as Division II, Division III, NAI, and JUCO. And each of these levels all have different requirements as far as rosters and scholarships and and how we divide up those scholarships. So let's start with FBS. FBS has 85 full scholarships. And when you have that full scholarship, that means you're not paying a dime for anything at all, and everything's taken care of for you as far as financially. But they are capped at 120 roster spots. Okay. Now, FCS is a little different. We have 63 total scholarships divided amongst the same 85 players and 120 roster spots. And the way that works as far as having the 63 scholarships you divide is you're going to be packaged differently between both academic, athletic, merit, and then need-based money as far as scholarships are concerned. So say it's $20,000 to go to University of Northern Colorado and you had $10,000 scholarship from football, you can still get a $10,000 academic scholarship. So even though it's a full scholarship for you technically, on paper, for them you only count as a half scholarship. And you'll see that not only in the FCS level, but the Division II level as well, and even the Division III, even though you don't have academic money, and also an NAI. So for Division II, which are kind of our smaller schools that we may not hear every day, those are not usually the teams you're seeing on ABC on Sunday, like you would Ohio State or Mississippi, Oregon, schools like that. Division II is usually your kind of smaller schools like, say, Fort Lewis College, Colorado Pueblo, Colorado Mines, just as far as local schools or in the greater Colorado region is. If we're talking to our Texas guys, then it would be schools like Texas, West Texas A&M, Texas A&M Commerce, Midwestern State. So as far as that's concerned, you have 36 full scholarships, and they again are divided or packaged amongst their players. And the big difference with Division II, Division III, and NAI, as opposed to both FBS and FCS, is they have an uncapped roster. What an uncapped roster means is that you can have more than 120, because again, like I said, these are smaller schools, and with them being smaller schools, any more kids you have on that football program are helping the population of your school, right? And a lot of these schools are in smaller towns and smaller schools, so having an extra 15 guys, that makes a big difference for their program. So that's why you'll see that uncapped roster at Division II, Division III, and NAI schools. Next, we're going to talk about social media. And now I realize, with this youth program, we're here anywhere from 3rd grade all the way to our 8th graders, right? So with that, I'm obviously take a grain of salt with when you want to, introduce your kids to social media. But once we get to that social media and we want to start using that for the recruiting, that's going to be, ultimately, it can be our biggest tool and our biggest enemy if we're reckless with it. And I really cannot stress that enough, because in today's modern recruiting world, coaches are going to use different platforms, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, even TikTok, to maybe reach out or to watch your film. So we want to make sure we're making sure that we have our clean Twitter and a clean social media presence, because ultimately, I can't tell you how many times it comes down to with kids is what are they like on social media, because that's the first impression a lot of these coaches are going to get from you, right? Because they might be able to see you on the field or watch your film, but they haven't really got to meet you in person. So what you're posting online is a representative of yourself. So we really want to make sure we're taking care of that image, right? And we're making sure we're posting the correct things. We're not reposting, retweeting, liking things that are suspect, because that's something that's that can get us in serious trouble down the road, and you can get a scholarship removed from that. So we want to make sure, I cannot stress this enough, how important it is to make sure we're staying clean on our social media, because every program is going to scour it. And again, I cannot preach this enough, especially with kids our age, how important it is. And again, another thing we want to think about is using multiple platforms. Posting our film, whether it be on Instagram and Twitter, or Instagram and Facebook, whichever we want. The more platforms you're using, the more your eyes have the potential to be on your film. So, building that Twitter bio. So when we get to that point, we want to make sure we're using our real name. We don't want to use a nickname that we've been given or we've given ourselves. We want to make sure we're using our real name, because we want to be as easy as possible to be found. Next, we want to have our class year, because that class year denotes what stage you are in the recruiting process, because each year of high school has different recruiting rules. So we want to make sure you have your class year so these coaches know what age you are, so if they can contact you or not. Next, we want to put our high school name. With that high school name, we want to spell out that high school name, right? We don't want to just have like RMHS. We want to have Rocky Mountain High School, okay? Again, we want it to be as easy to be found. The next one we got is we want to put our position or positions that we play, followed by our GPA and test score. And because again, we want to make sure we're showing our academics as well as our athletics, right? Because different schools have different requirements to get in. So by showing that GPA and test score, these coaches will know if you're a recruitable athlete for their program or not. Next, we want to put our location, right? Because just because we've typed our high school and it says Rocky Mountain High School, well, which Rocky Mountain High School is there? There's several across the country. Are we Rocky Mountain High School in Meridian, Idaho? Or are we Rocky Mountain High School in Fort Collins, Colorado? These are things we want to think about. So make sure we put our location. Next, we're talking about pictures. And with our profile picture, we want to make sure it's a headshot of ourselves or something in our uniform, right, where we're playing. That way we can see, that coach can see who you are. A lot of times we'll have guys in Colorado and they'll be snowboarding or skiing and they're on a mountain way off in the distance, and then you can't tell who you are. Again, we want to make it as easy to be found as possible. Next, with our background picture, again, just like we talked about earlier with the importance of social media and keeping that image clean, we want to make sure we have an appropriate background picture and something that no one would find offensive. And then finally, we want to put on our highlight link, which we can link that highlight, right, into our bio. Now, if you have Huddle, that can be your Huddle link, or if your highlight film's on YouTube, you can use that YouTube link. Whatever you use to link your highlight film, you can place right in there. So next, we're going to go on how to make a highlight. So we want to start with an info slide, putting our name, our phone number, again, that graduation class year, our test scores, and our GPA. It's not a bad idea to put your email or your coach's email on there as well. The next thing we want to think about is keeping that video short, right? We don't need a billion plays, right? It's a highlight film. So it's basically a movie trailer, right? So how long is a movie trailer? 2 to 3 minutes. Same thing with a highlight film, right? That's kind of how we want to think about that. Prioritize by putting your best plays on your highlight first on your skill set, right? Because we want to show a wide array of skills. We don't want to see only long balls or only you just running off tackle or, only rushing the passer if you're a lineman. We want to make sure we're showing a variety of plays of what we're doing, right? We want to make sure that you're seeing our best 10 plays. It doesn't matter if it's offense, defense, special teams, running the ball, throwing the ball, catching the ball, whatever it may be, right? And the next thing we want to think about is showing the plays that we've made against our best competition, right? Because ultimately that's what it comes down, whether we're in middle school, elementary, anytime we go up that next level, that team's going to be better. So we want to make sure we're showing our best competition, because that's projecting us what we'll be at the next level. Next thing we want to think about is skipping music and fancy transitions, because when you are getting recruited in high school, these coaches, they're going to be watching hundreds of films of kids a day. So the last thing they want to worry about is trying to figure out what transition's going on. They want to just watch you and see what type of player you are. And the next, once you're finished watching it, make sure you show that to a coach, okay? So that way think about your first highlight is always your rough draft. And then just like you would do a rough draft at school, what happens? Usually you have a peer or your teacher review it, okay? So this is the same thing. When we have that, we want to get it to our coach so our coach can see it ultimately, and then they can tell you what they want to tweak or what you should include if you forgot something. And if you're having a problem and you can't reach your coach, you can always email your highlight to me, which is ab@jenkinselite.com, or you can give it to me on Twitter, right? Either of those are options. If your coach won't look at it, I'll look at it and I'll help you out, okay? Next thing we're going to talk about is camps. In camps, there's a wide array of them, and they're all different, and they all have kind of their own pluses and minuses, right? And some camps are better than others, and so we're just going to take you through the kind of the ins and outs of camps. So the first one we have are exposure camps, which are football camps that are not affiliated directly with a school or a university. The examples of these camps at the larger level, like Rivals camps, Elite 11, the Opening. Most of these camps, you're just going to get your height and weight, 40. You might have a few competitions, but the amount of coaches there may be is a little suspect, and a lot of that is because it's due to NCAA rules. So really, when you get to the high school level, the camps I like the most are college camps themselves, and that's because they're held on their actual college campus. They're ran by the staffs themselves, and there's several types that kind of fall under that umbrella. Each camp usually has a youth camp. They'll usually have a specialist camp for, punters and snappers and kickers. And then sometimes you'll have padded camps, and sometimes they're just prospect camps, which are shorts and t-shirts. They all vary. But ideally, these are the camps we want to go to because this gives us a chance to see that town, the university, the facilities, meet that staff, and really decide, hey, is this a place I could see myself going in the future, compared to a lot of camps where they're just at an open park, and then you can't really make a decision on that school. All right. The next one we have is a mega camp, and these involve multiple colleges coming together to evaluate prospects. You'll see a lot of these in Texas, throughout the Midwest. There's some in Charlotte as well. So a lot of these camps are usually kind of at a smaller school, and it'll be up to 75 different colleges at all different levels coming in to evaluate players. And it's kind of overwhelming because if you have that many schools, you're always going to have that many players going to that camp as well. But these are a great as far as getting that first step in and kind of getting noticed, because you have so many schools that it only takes a couple to notice you. And a lot of times then they'll ask you if they liked you at their camp to come to their college camp and to get a better look at you. So a lot of times these are really the best way to somewhat get some exposure. All right. Next, we have combines. And combines, that's just like the NFL combine we see every spring, right? And so when we're looking at that, it's just, height, weight, speed, jumping ability. It's more based on just measurables. And then on the next one, we have, which are skill cases or showcases. And showcases are kind of like combines, but they're going to include a little position-specific work and some competition as well. And then the last one, we have our skills camp, which is very similar to our very own Jenkins Elite camps, where we're really focusing more on building skills and technique. And obviously there's competition as well. But really for most of the youth guys, if you can go to a skills camp, I feel like these are the most valuable as far as worth your time at this age group. Now once we get into high school, again, when we're at that sub-varsity level, again, skills camps are very rewarding. And then, but once we're a varsity player, we should really kind of be thinking more about going to college camps, all right? Academic requirements. So these are I'm just going to take you the basic academic requirements to be an NCAA athlete. Right now you have to pass, and this obviously with some of our younger guys, this is always subject to change, but currently, the NCAA rules are you have to pass 16 core classes, which is 4 English credits, 3 math, 3 science, 2 social science, a foreign language, comparative, maybe a religion or philosophy class, and then 2 additional courses of any of those above. So it could be an extra math class, an extra science class, an extra year of French. Next, we want to have at least a 2.3 GPA. Now that 2.3 GPA is the bare minimum to be eligible, and that's not going to get you into most schools. So we want to always make sure we're shooting for at least above a 3.0 ideally. So that way, because if we're above a 3.0, there's a good chance we'll get into the lion's share of colleges. But I mean, it will only take a 2.3 to get you into somewhere. All right. The next we have our minimum ACT composite score, which is 75, or our minimum SAT score, which is just our math and English. So that's not including our reading or our essay score, and that minimum score is 900. Sliding scales. So what the sliding scales is, this is how the NCAA uses determines your eligibility, and how that works is your GPA and your test score are on kind of sliding scales. So the higher your GPA, the lower your test score can be to be eligible, or the higher your test score, the lower your GPA can be, right? So it all depends. But either way, it's to make it easier on the athlete because we all demonstrate our knowledge differently. You know, some of us are test takers, some of us do better with schoolwork. So we want to make sure that, you know, with this process, we can have both of them, right? It's the best of both worlds as opposed to leaning one way or another. That way you don't have to stress. So if you do bad on the test score, it's okay. You can rely on your GPA. Or if you've kind of struggled over the course of your high school, well, that's okay. We can focus on our test score. Next, we're going to talk about recruiting periods. So recruiting periods, we have 4 different kinds, right? So we're going to start out, we have a dead period, which dead is what it sounds like, right? Coaches may not have any in-person contact with recruits or parents whatsoever. Dead. Our next one is our quiet period, which coaches can only have in-person contact on their college campus, right? So they can't go out and see you, but if you go down and visit their college and you're on campus, they can say, then you guys can have a conversation. The next one is our evaluation period, with coaches can watch athletes compete in person, visit their school, but they can't talk to you if you're off campus. So a lot of times evaluation periods, you'll see that in the fall during football season, because that's when you'll see guys coming in watching games on the sidelines. And then in the spring, a lot of times you'll see that you'll also always have an evaluation in the spring, because with that one, that's when they're kind of looking to recruit that next class of the future, right? And then finally we have our contacts period, which is exactly what it sounds like. All communication between athletes and coaches is permissible. So right now we're just going to take you through this year's FBS recruiting calendar and just kind of give you a walkthrough of kind of what it looks like over the course of a calendar year. Now obviously this is going to change for us in the future, but this is what this year's look like. So right now we are on September 1st, which is the first day literally of the evaluation period for the whole season. We just got done with our month-long dead period, which is always the 1st of August, and it's through the 31st of August, and it's always that whole month of August at every level, because that's when every coach and team, they're all in season getting prepped for fall camp and everything. So they're not really on the recruiting train yet. But September 1st, so literally today, through November 26th is evaluation. So this is when you're going to be seeing coaches on the sideline, maybe walking through your hallways in the future when you're in high school. After that, we have our contact period for the fall, which is November 27th through December 17th, followed by a single day quiet period, December 18th, and then we have our dead period over Christmas break, essentially, right, which is December 19th through January 12th. We open up back with our first contact period of the next year of 2023, right? And that's a 2-week period from January 13th to January 28th. We next have a single day quiet period again of January 29th, followed by just a short dead period, January 30th through February 28th. So again, just about the same as that first dead period that we had in August, right? And then we have our quiet period, which is March 1st through April 14th, followed by that spring evaluation period I was talking about earlier, which is a 6-week hitch between April 15th and May 31st, followed by a quiet period this June 1st through 26th. This is when you're going to see the lion's share of most of those mega camps as well as college camps. Is always going to be in this June, the month of June right here, because this is that quiet period where you can visit them, but they can't go out and visit you. Finally, we have our last dead period of the year, which is June 27th through July 24th. And this is, this is the coach's break before they have a whole football season to look forward to. And then newly added in the last couple years, we have this small last week of July, which is the 25th of the 31st, is a quiet period. It used to be dead period all the way through July, and in the last 3 years they've added this. And I think that a lot of that has to do with both the transfer portal and NIL and the additional early signing day period as well. So I think that's here to stay. With that said, if we have any questions, feel free about the recruiting process or anything at all, feel free to email or call me. Reach out to me on Twitter. Again, adam.byrne@jenkinselite.com. My phone number is down at the bottom, 970-903-6858. And then finally, my Twitter is @AB Jenkins Elite. Thank you for your time. And again, if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Have a good one. Fuck.